Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neal McCarry, and I am the Manager of Strategic Planning here at North Sydney Council. No doubt many of you will be aware of the recent finalisation of the Crow's Nest Transport-Oriented Development Program announced by the State Government a couple of weeks ago. During this presentation, I'll be providing a summary and outline of the key changes to Council's planning controls to hopefully help you gain a better understanding. I'm just going to share my screen now, so there may be a slight pause for a moment while I get that up. During this presentation, I'll be outlining the government's broader housing reforms and focusing on the recent amendments to the planning controls that have been made and covering the headings you can see on your screen now. The team and I are also working on a more detailed analysis of the potential impacts and issues arising from these amendments, which we'll be presenting to a meeting of Council next year. So this presentation is an overview and summary of the changes, and more information and a critique will be available after our analysis is complete. So why are we here? In 2023, the Commonwealth and states set a target to build 1.2 million homes over the next 5 years. The New South Wales Government committed to delivering a target of 377,000 of those dwellings, with the majority of those to be provided in metropolitan Sydney. The State Government more recently set a target of 5,900 new dwellings for the North Sydney local government area. As part of this broader program, in December 2023, the Department of Planning introduced the Crow's Nest Transit-Oriented Development Program. And the focus of today's presentation, along with a short piece on the low to mid-rise housing reforms that was also introduced. In August this year, Council endorsed a detailed submission in response to the exhibition of the Crow's Nest Transport-Oriented Development Program. On 27th of November 2024, the State Government's transport program for St Leonards and Crow's Nest came into effect. As a result, amendments have been made to North Sydney Council's local environmental plan, along with our neighbours in Lane Cove and Willoughby Council areas. The North Sydney Local Environmental Plan is the principal legal document that regulates and controls the scale and type of development that is allowed on a piece of land. It is made up of a written legal instrument and a series of maps. This slide is illustrating a few of the key documents that the State Government released as part of its finalisation. These include a finalisation report, a design guide for future development, urban design analysis, a transport technical note, and importantly, what is called an amending instrument, which has the effect of amending clauses and provisions in Council's local environmental plan. Links to these more detailed documents are provided further in this presentation, as well as in the video description and the web page where you're watching this for those who may be interested. This slide contains some high-level numbers and a summary, and these figures also, just to note, include parts of Lane Cove and Willoughby Council areas. The image you see is a 3D representation of potential built forms that could arise under these planning controls. To get your bearings, this is a view looking from the north, and this taller line of buildings is looking down the Pacific Highway. And this graphic shows you the potential built forms and the scale that could arise. Those are the ones largely shown in light blue. And then the coloured buildings are ones actually already in place on the ground. The next slide on the left of your screen is the area shaded light blue that was exhibited as part of these proposed amendments in July and August earlier this year. On the right, you can see the finalised extent, and importantly, this includes, as you can see the dotted line there, an additional area that was included following exhibition. This area, to get your bearings, extends down Oxley Street, down Lithgow Street as far as River Road, and then further to the south along Gillies as far as Rocklands Road, and then up through Sinclair and Nicholson Streets. So these areas weren't the subject of public exhibition, but were included following the exhibition. This slide on the left contains a snapshot from the Urban Design Report. Again, this is a 3D representation of potential built forms as exhibited that could occur as a result of planning control changes, and to the right is the finalised extent. The numbers, if you can read those, I apologise, they're a bit small. I've got a closer in slide shortly coming up, is the height of these potential buildings expressed in stories. And this image can be found on pages 11 and 12 of the Urban Design Report. Again, to get your bearings, this is an aerial perspective taken from looking towards the northeast, with the Pacific Highway being the corridor there of taller towers, where you can hopefully see my cursor moving. And the area I mentioned, actually just to compare it to the image on the left, that was included following exhibition is this area here, down Lithgow Street, River Road, this full extent where, if you can see my cursor, up Sinclair and up to Nicholson as well. As you can see, a number of those, apart from those areas, a number of the sites also underwent significant building height increases beyond those exhibited. So the light pink, if you can see that, is what was exhibited, and then the darker red is the finalised heights that were set as part of this finalisation. This slide is showing you the building heights. Now these figures, if you can read, are expressed in metres. I've included these maps rather than the finalised ones in the local environmental plan itself, because they're a little bit easier to read. But just for absolute clarity, the effect of these amendments has amended North Sydney Council's local environmental plan. And again, we'll provide a link at the end of this presentation and on our website to where you can find those technical maps in the LEP. This slide is floor space ratio controls that have been implemented. Floor space ratio is a planning term that is used to control density. It sets a maximum total amount of internal floor space that can be provided on a site, and this is expressed as a ratio, which is based on the site area. So for example, if someone had a 1,000 square metre site area and a floor space ratio of 2.5 to 1 applied, they could potentially achieve a maximum total amount of floor area across the different levels of the building of 2,500 square metres. Similarly, I've just included these maps rather than the finalised ones, as they're a little easier to read. The non-residential floor space ratio. So non-residential floor space ratio, similar to the last slide in concept. However, this relates to the non-residential uses on land in the mixed use zone. So that means when I say non-residential, things such as shops and offices and that type of thing. And this is set as a minimum on these sites. And this would mean that those uses would generally be provided at the lower levels of the building and with residential units above. So just for clarity, these areas coloured and annotated, they're all the mixed use zones in this precinct. Next, we have the zoning map. Apologies for this graphic, it is a little busy, but this is an extract from the amended zoning map in Council's local environmental plan. Most note is this R4 high density zone, which is extended to a much greater extent than was exhibited, and that's the darker red zone you can see there. The zoning of the majority of the areas as exhibited remained unchanged, such as the mixed use extent, that's that light blue through there. And I will come back to it, but this block here circled in red didn't undergo a zoning change, but there's some specifics on that I'll talk to shortly. This slide is showing you a bit of a zoomed in extract again from the Urban Design Report that the state government released. This is from page 25 for those who may wish to look at that. And this provides a bit more detail and clarity on the degree of change between what was exhibited and finalised. Again, to get your bearings, this is taken from the southwest looking sort of northeast, and the line of tall buildings is that made permissible potentially under these changes, and that's the Pacific Highway through there. And then the area I talked about here, this is Oxley Street, if you can see my cursor, Lithgow Street, River Road, this is going up Shirley, and then this is Nicholson. So that area was all added in as well. And again, the light pink colouring is the heights that were exhibited, and the darker colouring there is what was made following exhibition and finalisation. Next up, we have an extract from page 33 of the Urban Design Report that provides a bit more detail on the difference between what was exhibited. To get your bearings here, this is a view looking from the southeast. And this taller line of buildings is the same one I just showed you on the Pacific Highway. And then this purple building here is the new Crow's Nest Metro entry point. These lighter coloured forms here are the potential building forms being progressed over the station by way of an application. And then these light pink, again, same coloration was what was exhibited, and the red is what may now be permitted under the new building heights that have been included. The state government, in making these amendments to Council's local environmental plan, also finalised a precinct design guide. Now, the precinct design guide contains numerous more prescriptive provisions to guide the final future built form on individual sites. It has the same effect as Council's current development control plan, but doesn't mirror it by any means. And I've just listed on there, the slide, a few of the type of things it tries to deal with. The point I just want to make on this is, importantly, the design guide is actually referenced in Council's local environmental plan, and that requires new development to be consistent with these design guide requirements. One of the key impacts of taller buildings of this nature is the shadows they cast. So we don't yet have available detailed shadow modelling, but this diagram is presented just to talk to briefly to try and illustrate or articulate the extent of overshadowing that may arise from some of these taller building heights. So if we take this building here as an example, where there under the LEP is a height limit of 126 metres assigned, so that's to accommodate potentially around a 40-storey building. In midwinter, when the length of the shadow is at its greatest, the length of shadow is generally around 3 times the height of the building. So a building located on this site, if it's developed, could generate a shadow in the morning hours up to 375 metres long. So that would bring that shadow length right down sort of south of River Road, potentially. And that would, as the sun makes its move through the sky, that would then sort of arc around and shorten as the sun gets a little higher overhead. Similarly, these slightly taller, shorter, and then further shorter buildings would also cast shadows, but of a lesser length, but they would make a similar sort of arc through that as the sun moved overhead through the day. This table dealing with solar controls, this table is an extract from the design guide, and whilst I won't read all these out, the left-hand column identifies the area over which some solar protections are applied, and the right column specifies the requirements that new developments will need to comply with when it comes to solar access or protection of these areas. You can pause the recording if you wish to review these in more detail. And just raising the point, we haven't yet to test these, but the team will be reviewing this along with the modelling and modelling these impacts in more detail over the coming weeks. This slide is also an extract from the design guide that was issued as part of the finalisation. And this is showing you the block of land bound by Lithgow Street, River Road, Christie Street and Oxley Street. With a combination of the provisions within the local environmental plan, they're termed incentive provisions, as well as the specifications within this design guide. One of the aims of these amendments is to deliver a new area of open space available to the public of at least 2,000 square metres. And the built forms, so when I say that, that's the blue outlines. These are indicative. Simplicity of amendment is through a planning control. It doesn't have the effect of approving an actual building. However, just to make the point that these heights that we've annotated on this diagram are showing you the maximum height that could potentially be achieved on these parcels of land within this street block. One of the government's cited objectives of the transport-oriented development program was to increase the supply of affordable housing. Affordable housing is housing that is priced so that households with low to moderate incomes can afford it, as well as meet other basic living costs. Affordable housing is usually available for rent at a discount to the market rent for similar properties in the area, and there's quite a number of eligibility criteria apply. So the area shown in this map hatched in blue, so that's the full extent there, will be required to provide a minimum of 3% of all new development as affordable housing. Some sites, as you can see marked up there, have a higher requirement for affordable housing, a higher percentage to be delivered for any new development as affordable housing. So those are a summary of some of the key elements of the recent changes to Council's planning controls that I hope has provided a level of clarification in the short term. As I mentioned earlier on slide 3, the low and mid-rise housing reforms will also result in changes to development controls in many areas of the North Sydney local government area. This slide is just indicating the location of the existing rail and metro station entry points. The proposed reforms will likely allow an increased level of development in areas within both a 400-metre walking catchment and an 800-metre walking catchment. These shaded areas are measured as the crow flies, so will likely be slightly different depending on the actual walking distance. And some of you may recall or may have seen, attended the public meeting we had early in February this year, where there was a more detailed presentation on the detail around these proposed reforms. So we'll include or have included a link to that also on this webpage. The extent of potential change in simple terms is dependent on the site's distance from the station, as well as the existing zoning as well. So I've now just overlaid for clarity the Crow's Nest Todd area that we've been focusing on in this presentation to show you. And we understand that, just for clarity, those changes have now come into place in that they've amended Council's LEP, and the broader reforms, called the low and mid-rise reforms, we had anticipated, were advised would be happening by the end of 2024, but now appears likely it won't be until sometime in 2025. And we do understand that they won't apply to this area we've just been focusing on today. So lastly, and to finish up, this slide contains links to various important pieces of information that I've referred to. We've also provided these links on our webpage as well for ease of access. And just to repeat, as I mentioned earlier, the team here in Council are currently working on a more detailed analysis of the potential impact and issues arising from these amendments, which we'll be presenting to a meeting of Council next year. So hopefully this summary has been helpful, and as I said, a more detailed information analysis will be released as and when we complete it. So thank you very much for joining us, and wish you well. Thank you.